And the one thing that we need to make sure that Republicans in 2022 don't become is the party of parents. We need to own that agenda. We cannot let it go. And it's not just about critical race theory. It's coming out of COVID. It's parental frustration. It's parents being involved in their kids' schooling.
That was former Obama campaign manager Stephanie Cutter warning that the Democrats need to get their act together when it comes to education, or the 2022 midterms may be a repeat of Tuesday night. Even the New York Times and the Washington Post see what's going on, both running stories today about how the GOP's parent strategy in Virginia could become a winning formula nationally. But some Democrats, they just won't let it go. Here's White House spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre earlier today, still defending critical race theory.
Republicans are lying. They're not being honest. They're not being truthful about where we stand. And they're cynically trying to use our kids as a political football.
Joining me is the host of the Uncle Tom Talks podcast. He's also the executive director of the Rocky Mountain Black Conservatives, Derrick Wilburn. Derrick, thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, before we really dive into this, I'd like to settle, or at least add another voice to a debate that's going on here in America. There are many people on the left that say CRT isn't being taught in schools, and there are a lot of upset parents over something that apparently is not being taught. Could you shed some light on this debate?
The idea that it may not be, if it isn't being taught in your school, good for you. But the whole idea that since it isn't being taught, therefore we should never take steps to measure it and see to it that it isn't taught, or if it is, how it's going to be, is just nonsense. Why would you say just because we aren't doing it, we never want to pay any attention to it? Also, the idea that CRT isn't being taught may be just in name only. So it might not be called critical race theory. It might be called diversity, equity, inclusion. They got lots of different doors into the room that they sneak it in through. So the idea that we aren't teaching CRT, maybe we're not calling it CRT, but it's being taught nonetheless.
And, you know, when you look at the recent gubernatorial race in Virginia, on the right, you've got Glenn Youngkin appealing to parents who have been labeled as domestic terrorists for caring about what their kids are taught in school. On the left, you have Terry McAuliffe. He poured salt in an open wound and said parents should have no say in the curriculum, and obviously an outcome in favor of Glenn Youngkin. Does that signal to you that perhaps the GOP has become the party of parents, or do you think there's some more work to do?
In Colorado, very few people are looking at Colorado. Here in Colorado, we had close to clean sweeps in our school board races. We had school board races across the state, and conservative, it was a liberal bloodbath. We took over. And what's happening in the country right now is parents are becoming woke. So parents are getting awakened to what's happening in our schools. You know, every cloud has its silver lining. And the dark cloud of the COVID lockdowns of the last year has meant that every household in America went back to homeschooling. And parents got to see the kids cleaned out their lockers. They came home with their textbooks, their notebooks. They started doing online learning on speakers and screens in the household where mom and dad could hear and see what was going on. And parents got a close-up look at what the education system is putting into our children's minds, from critical race theory to sex education that has no place in the classroom, to teaching kids that maybe you're a male and maybe you're a female, or maybe you're neither one. And parents started hearing these things and seeing these things and got woke and started saying, now, wait a minute, that's not your job, public school system. That's not your responsibility. That's my responsibility. And started showing up at school boards, started having meetings with principals and vice principals, and started driving elections. And the Republicans, if they have any brains at all, will brand themselves the party of parents as hard and as fast as they can, because they're our kids, not the education system's kids.
Right. I think they will. And, you know, like so many other parents, Derrick, you've attended school board meetings. You've spoken out about CRT being taught. And in an eloquent speech that went viral, you said, and I quote, "I have taught my children that they're victims." You say they're victims of three things: their own ignorance, their own laziness, and their own poor decision making. End quote. I mean, bravo. It is about personal responsibility over the victim mentality. And I'm curious, what do you think is the perceived benefit for those out there that are pushing CRT?
Yeah, the Marxist agenda that is underneath CRT is very difficult to figure out who it benefits, other than government officials who just want to label a productive class of citizens as being oppressors and therefore get the support of those they label the oppressed to increase taxation and funnel more money into government. But it's just a scheme that's ultimately going to fail. My oldest son is a 2018 graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, one of the most difficult and prestigious engineering schools in the world. He then went on and got his pilot's license in 2020. He now flies jets for the United States Air Force. He has a lieutenant's paycheck. He purchased his first house. He has 2 cars he bought with cash. And before age 25, he's responsible for a $30 million aircraft. So I don't want to hear this business about we're oppressed, because I know better. I see it in my own household.
Yeah, imagine the success of so many young kids if parents and teachers taught them like you've taught your children. And thank you, by the way, for your son's service. We appreciate that. Derrick Wilburn, we appreciate you joining us tonight. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.